Andy from Tennis Euphoria. A bit of different content for you today. I am just about to hit on court. I have a lot of rackets with me and thought I'd do a quick review on the Roland Garros rackets, particularly the fourth round onwards, as to who was playing with what, and can I layer into that some consumer advice around retail versions of the frames that have worked well for people through our processes. So let's start with the final. Carlitos Alcaraz. Congratulations to him, fantastic result. He plays with a version of the Pure Aero VS, the Aero 98. The 98 square inch version is very much available for us retail buyers. It probably isn't that far away from what Alcaraz plays with. RPM Blast in this one here. This is the one that we tend to use for demos when people are going through our racket matching process. Excellent frame, more controlled than the regular Aero. This is not quite as stiff as previous editions. Highly recommend this. I actually find that a lot of people with almost sort of old-fashioned continental and eastern grips are tempted by this and then don't get on too well with it. Others that are advanced players, modern technique, looking for a bit more control, do really well with it. The other finalist, Sasha Zverev, unlucky to him. He obviously plays with or endorses the Gravity Pro. What we find is that the MP, the Gravity MP with some customization, does particularly well in our demo processes. Our Gravity MP here has a leather grip and some weight added at 3 and 9. This obviously has a 16 by 20 string pattern, so it's a bit more open. You have a slightly thicker beam with the MP compared to Sasha Zverev's Gravity Pro, so you have a little bit more free power, a little bit more launch from this string bed too, so it's a bit more accessible for intermediate to advanced players. It does particularly well in our playtests. So let's move on to the semi-finals. Casper Ruud, so he plays with the Yonex E-Zone 100. Not exactly sure as to which version that is. Currently you can get the black edition. We use this in our demos here. This is actually set up with a string setup not too far off Casper's. He used Polytour Spin in the mains and Polytour Pro in the crosses. We have black Polytour Pro in the crosses here. Characteristics of the retail version of the current E-Zone 100. It's actually quite controlled for a power racket. It does do quite well when people demo it. Sometimes I find that people are hoping for more of a launch angle when they're hitting and demoing with this. So sometimes it doesn't do quite as well against more spin-orientated rackets if that's suited to people's technique in our testing. Djokovic. We have released the Headspeed Legend line. Bit disappointing. This is the Legend, looks good, the MP. It actually is nothing like what Novak plays with. If you want to get hold of one of his old rackets or something close to it, then you can't get too far wrong with this old Radical liquid metal, 95 square inch head, 18 by 20. He obviously plays with a different Pro stock, which is an 18 by 90, more realistic with regards to what Novak plays with. If you wanted some retail advice, then the one thing that we found is that the Legend plays exactly the same as the current Headspeed MP. So it might come down to which one you prefer the look of as to which one you buy. Moving on to Yannick Sinner, so he uses a few versions back, Graphene XD Headspeed. This, I guess, would be the racket that you'd buy in retail. Different paint job to what he's using. I find it curious that he isn't using the modern day or the most recent paint job. It must be something to do with not getting them to him as yet. This iteration of the Speed MP, see our review on that. We actually found it a little bit disappointing. The previous version I thought didn't have too much wrong with it. This one, it does quite well with its target group, that's for sure, and it's obviously a market leader in terms of offering some power, some control, some forgiveness, does a little bit of everything. We've already covered Alcaraz, so let's move on to the quarterfinals. Stefanos Tsitsipas, a blade user. This is most likely to be Stefanos Tsitsipas's blade, a previous iteration of the blade with an 18 by 20 pattern. This is the basalt version, amply feel. It's got a nice feel to it. Stefanos has that amazing forehand, bit of a dodgy backhand, of course. Is this frame best for that backhand? Possibly. In terms of the blade's current lines, we are finding that the 98, 16 by 19, Current edition is going down really well with playtesters. Generally, this is more muted than the previous editions. It's really going down quite well, though. People are picking this frame. Grigor Dimitrov sticking at those quarterfinals. Okay, so he is obviously playing with blacked out pro staffs, but if you want something quite similar to what he's playing with a different string pattern. This is an old Pro Staff 97 LS. Clearly his will be much heavier than this, but in terms of the string pattern, we have something similar. Their Spin Effect Pro Staffs have that slightly different string pattern that Grigor will use. Do we find that Pro Staffs are going down well in our... they're not being picked too much at the moment. Perhaps with Roger's retirement, they're not quite as popular as they were. Okay, moving on to the fourth round, Holger Rune. We can go back to the Alcaraz racket using what we suspect is probably the current edition of the Pure Aero 98. So clearly a hit with modern day players. Interestingly, it's understood that Holger Rune's specs are not too much different to the retail versions that you would find. So the Pure Aero 98. Mute, here's an interesting frame and an interesting player. Really enjoy watching Mute. He's quite a character, isn't he? This is the TF-X1 New Technofiber 98. Next on the review list, so subscribe to the channel if you want to see our views there. He is using the current version of the 100. What are these frames all about? Total out there power and spin. They have the X-Stamp technology, which is muting and taking away nasty vibrations. With the X1, I actually didn't review that in the end. I found it to be so unstable at the top. And I found it that when people were hitting with it in our demos, they instantly were putting it down, to be honest, because of that instability. They were actually, despite the X-Stamp, feeling a lot of instability, lacking twist weight. Jury's out on the X1 98. Currently reviewing, as I say, thoughts out next week on that one. So next, let's have a look at Luca Arnaldi. So the head radical. This is an interesting one. Taylor Fritz as well in the fourth round. So it's likely that Fritz could be using a version like so, something like a Radical MP of yesteryear, quite a popular frame. This one, the IG frames. The current retail model, the one to go for most people is likely the MP. Why do I like this MP so much? It's very controlled. It's only a 300 gram unstrung weight, but typically they will come in at 320 to 325 on the swing weight. So they're exceptionally stable for the weight. Quite a tight pattern, good for control. I actually really like the variable beam on the Radical MP. Thin beam moving out to something thicker at 3 and 9. So reminiscent, I guess, to the PWS systems that you used to have in Wilson frames. And I think that adds a lot of stability for a relatively light and fast package, and lots of control. The feel is sort of semi-stiff with this one, but a good frame. Goes down quite well. It often competes really well with blades when we get people hitting this next to blades. So popular racket, does well. Bit of an unsung hero though still. And then Hubie Hurkacz. Hubie Hurkacz, the 97 reviews that we've done, we actually find that the Percept 97, customized a little. There's some lead tape here, as you can see, 3 and 9. Does really well for most people, despite the relatively heavy 310 unstrung weight on this Percept 97. It's a little bit flimsy, but once you power it up a little bit, relatively generous sweet spot for a 97. This is a good frame for people to go through looking for that 97 Yonex experience. It is a good control package. We often find that it gets close and shortlist with the blade, right down to final choices often for people. Hasn't been picked as much as the blade, or interestingly the VCore 98 Tour, however. Hope that was useful. Do you want me to cover the WTA, what players we're using from the fourth round onwards? Clearly pros are just endorsing frames, and so I'm sure I'll get loads of comments about what people are actually using, and I'm fully aware of that, but hopefully there's been some good retail advice when you're looking to buy your retail frames nowadays. Thanks for watching, and if you like this type of content, let me know. I'll try to make some more.